What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Thursday, May 16th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 285. That's right, a rare Thursday. We're coming to you a day early because we wanted to give everybody an extra opportunity to listen to this very important preview of the NLL Finals. We knew that the game on Friday would have given people an opportunity to listen to this episode. We're like, hey, let's record a day early. Let's get it out a day early so everybody has a day extra to consume this episode. Phil, I don't know if we've ever recorded a Thursday episode before. We're possibly making history over 3 years in.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've had some very strange days that we've recorded throughout time. I may be going all the way back to hypothetical history. I mean, who knows what days we recorded that show, especially with me traveling so much for work when I was. I don't know if we've done a Thursday release, Wednesday recording for this show. This might be new.
I very much agree. It's going to be very weird because we're recording on Wednesday night. This is coming out on Thursday, obviously. So really, I don't know if we've ever recorded on a Wednesday, but to be honest, I'm a little different. It's really warm in this room. So if you start seeing glistening on my forehead, it's I don't have a makeup artist in here. It's just, you're going to have to deal with the sweat coming off my head.
You know, it's not even summer yet, right?
I know I'm one of those people, and I get warm very easily, Phil. I don't know if you know this. I don't know why you would, but I do. I get warm very easily. That's part of the reason why I like winter a little bit, is because you get to, I mean, there's been times where I just go outside and I'm in shorts and a t-shirt and I'm just like accustomed to it. I'm not accustomed to this type of weather yet, Phil.
That's fair.
So my goal is to not turn on my AC until Memorial Day weekend. And I know I have another week or two before then, and I'm holding out. I'm holding out as much as I can.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know if mine's turned on yet. I don't think it has. I kind of have mine. I think we both have smart thermostats, and I kind of have it set to whatever it's set to. And mine knows if I'm home, away, it does all this eco plus smart nonsense to, I don't know, save $10 in the planet, I guess. So I don't think mine's gone on yet ever for air conditioning. I don't think it's been hot enough inside to have it trigger that temperature point. I don't think we're going to get there by Memorial Day. I mean, maybe. I don't know. We have random really hot days. But I feel like outside it's been okay. It's been mid-70s, and then at night it's been pretty cool. Honestly, this has been perfect weather. I think it was last Friday.
Yep.
Last Friday night, it was just literally like perfect outside. It was sunny, but it was cool, and it was still like t-shirt and shorts, but not hot, not cold. I don't know. It was literally like a perfect night. I was like, this temperature, whatever it is right now, 24/7, and that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I currently just have mine off, so I don't have the furnace going. I don't have the AC going. It's just dormant right now.
Spring and fall, good time to shut it down.
This has been a very good spring, Phil. I'm the champion of spring sucks, but this has been a very good spring.
Nice one.
I mow my backyard and front yard probably twice a week, just trying to keep the ticks away. I'm not one of those psychos. Like, if I didn't have dogs and a creek behind my house, probably let it grow a little bit longer, but I'm trying to keep the ticks and mosquitoes away so I can actually enjoy my backyard. That's why I'm mowing it so often. So I don't mind that. I'm just happy that it's not like sopping muddy mess back there. I think we're out of that phase. So absolutely love it. Let us know what your thermostat is set to by following us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. My article is not out yet. It's coming out on Friday. We flip-flop both days, so you can read that, because reading it is a lot quicker than, listening to an hour episode. And then look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. But before we dive into the actual preview and a couple questions I have for Phil, Phil has a very, very important announcement to make. Take it away, Phil.
You went so high on that note that Discord cut you off.
Thank you.
Our merchandise store is live. It has taken a long time. and we finally figured out some of the details, some of the more behind the scenes things that we needed to do to get it up. But we have shirts, stickers, magnets, koozies, and a bunch of other stuff available with our brand new logo that dropped a couple of weeks ago. We got sponsors, we got a new logo, we got some merchandise. PK, we are moving up.
We really are, and I kind of took a back seat role to this one. I got to give producer Pat, a lot of credit. He kind of built the whole website and designed all the shirts and all that kind of stuff. You were the spearhead to try to get the store up and running, nagging nonstop. A good nag. That when we nag with our company here, quote unquote, I'm going to call it a company because we have sponsors, logos, all store now. This is an official company now. But when we nag here at our company, it's a good nag because the important stuff is what we're nagging about. So credit to you, credit to producer Pat. I kind of took a backseat role in this one. I kind of just absolutely love the website. There are specific colors. So if you're a fan of the Buffalo Bandits, you can get Bandits colors. If you're a fan of the Buffalo Sabres for whatever reason, you can get Buffalo Sabres colors. There's Bills colors. There's our own colors in there too. Absolutely love what you guys both have able to do. And I don't really want to talk about the pricing, but I think the pricing is in a good spot as much as we can, where we're not making much, if any, money on this to try to keep the prices as low as possible for anybody that, for whatever reason, wants our logo. But the koozies,
nice
I'm going to be getting I'm getting myself a koozie, Phil. I'm definitely getting myself a koozie to represent the BSC. Maybe a sticker for the back of my car as well.
You guys and your stickers. The stickers were the most requested item
by far.
We had. Not every single person. A lot of people kept asking, like, especially since the new logo dropped, like, oh, you guys gonna have stickers? Really want stickers? I don't understand personally the stickers, and I do have to scrape off a lot of stickers where I work. So maybe I'm just very against stickers. I'm more of a magnet person where you can kind of just take it off wherever you're putting it on. But people love stickers, and for those who love stickers, go enjoy them. We got lots of sticker options, so enjoy.
Yeah, so huge credit to both you and producer Pat for getting this thing up and running. It will be in the link tree on all our social media sites, or it's on our website at buffalosportscollective.com. At the very top of the screen, there's a little tab that says shop. Click that, it'll take you right to the store. So really thank you to anybody that partakes in that. Like, again, we're not taking much, if any, profit from any of these things. Everything is, what we did was we tried to make the profit margins as minimal as possible to make everything as affordable as possible. That's why these prices are as low as possible. I had a bar I wanted it at, and I didn't want any of you guys to exceed that bar. So if the prices are low, you can just thank me, I guess.
True.
No, I had nothing to do with it. But Phil, let's dive into, again, thank you for anybody that buys anything from that store. I absolutely love it. To go out in public and possibly see this logo anywhere, even if it's just like on the back of a stop sign, it would be really cool. Maybe one day we'll get there. But let's dive into our preview now, Phil. There are two options that could happen for the Buffalo Bandits. They could be back-to-back champions. They could walk out either this Saturday or the following Saturday as back-to-back NLL champions and hoist that cup one more time. Or they could lose, and that's also an option. That's not an option that I think a lot of Bandit Land, actually most, if not all of Bandit Land, is hoping for, but it is a possible outcome. So my question, and I guess I'll phrase them both at the same time, what happens if they win, and what happens if they lose? Like, if they win, it's back-to-back titles. Dane's 2-3 in the finals. Josh and JT as a head coach are 2-2. Priolo's 2-3. Vince goes to 5-4 in his career. But if they lose, they're 1-3 in this 4-season run of 4 straight finals appearances. They're 1-4 in their last 5 appearances. Dane falls to 1-4. Josh is 1-3. Priolo's 1-4. Vince falls to 4-5. JT's 1-3. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but those are realistic outcomes. They could either walk out of that with back-to-back championships or go 1-4 in their last 5 finals. So I guess my real question is, what happens if they win and what happens if they lose?
Yeah, to me, the answer to both of them, I think, and they're right on the edge, right? I think they're still in win now mode for sure. I mean, Dane and Josh are, were the two best offensive players in the entire league this year, and there's no way you're going to go full rebuild with those two players on your team. It's very similar to Josh Allen and the Bills. Like, yes, they're in a rebuild year, but you have Josh and you have a chance to win every single game while he's on your team. I think it's the same with the Bandits, but the big thing to me, win or lose, is what Matt Vince does. I think the
Agreed. Yep.
entire backbone of this team, I know I just mentioned Dane, Josh, incredible. The offense, incredible. But especially in the playoffs here, I'm not going to say that they've struggled a ton, but the offense has not been what it was in the season. And the defense, which we'll talk about later, has been beyond incredible. And Vince has been a huge part of that. I don't know if they are where they are without the way Vince has been playing. And it's just, I think everything kind of relies on him. You have a few other people listed, and I mean, I think they are also big parts of the team. I'll let you mention them in a moment, but to me, everything just goes to what Vince will do. And I understand everyone's going to say, oh, he's got a 2-year contract. He's got another year on his contract. That I don't know. I feel like in the NLL, that doesn't mean as much as people think it does. And I believe the Bandits have said that despite what his contract says, if he wants to hang it up, he can hang it up. If he wants to retire, he's going to retire. So I think it all just depends on what Vince does after this season. And we may not know that until very, very late in the summer, like he's done the last couple of times. But I really do believe that this team goes where Vince goes as far as rebuilding. I'm not saying that if he disappears, that Orelman can't step up or Shanahan can't step up and that they're going to be a terrible team. They're still going to be very good. But if Vince retires, no matter what happens, win or lose, I think you might see some other players that are a little bit older go with him. And I don't know. I think the teams, as far as rebuild goes versus win now, we got to go all in, go again, and push really hard for another finals appearance. I think it just really hinges on what Matt Vince does.
So I fully agree with what you're saying. And for those of you that are saying, hey, why are you talking about this even before the finals even started? There was a week and a half of nothingness. So we're trying to fill a little bit of a gap here. We've been talking about this game and pounding it to death for 3 straight shows. So there's only so much more we can talk about. Yeah, we're still going to talk about that as well in a couple minutes. But I figured it would be a fun idea to kind of toss this question out because there are 2 outcomes that will be happening in this finals, and one team it could be this weekend, like you said, and one of these teams is going to lose their first game of the playoffs on Friday night. It's going to happen. It's guaranteed. But yeah, Vince is going to be 42 when next season starts. Buchanan 37, Priola 35, and Dawson 39. Those are all questionable players if they would return, and I don't know if, hey, you win back-to-back, even if they sweep or they win in 3 games, Buffalo does that entice them to want to come back and try to go for a 3-peat? Does that go, hey, we just won back-to-back. It doesn't happen very often in the NLL. Let's go out on top. But I also thought that last year, would Priola retire? I was pretty sure he wasn't going to retire. But Buchanan and Vince, I was questioning, hey, will they ride off into the sunset after a championship? That's a great way to go out. Then they decided to come back. But now if they win back-to-back, does that entice them? Hey, do we want to go back? Does a Buffalo win entice more teams like a Toronto, like a San Diego, like a Halifax that we mentioned on the last show? Does that entice them to go more rebuild, knowing that, hey, they have a dynasty right here? If Vince comes back, this is not a team that's going to go anywhere, and they're going to be the favorites coming back to win another one and go to a 5th straight finals. But if they do lose, does that have the opposite effect? Does Vince say, hey, now I need to prove something. I need to go to another finals and get my finals record to 5-5. I know he really probably doesn't care about that whatsoever, but it's a 2-year deal. Does he want to come back in Dane and Josh's prime and try to win another one? Does this make Buchanan itchy to come back? Does this make San Diego, Halifax, and Toronto more likely to run it back, knowing, hey, Buffalo's 1-4 in their last 5 finals. If we just get there, they're going to lose. Like, that was the conversation last year is this a team that can get to the finals and just doesn't have enough to get over the top? And they finished that narrative last year and got over the top. But if they go to another finals this year, go 1-3 in their last 4 and 1-4 in their last 5, does that entice teams like San Diego and Toronto, who were right on the edge, to try to run it back again? Those are the big questions for me, along with the number one question is what happens to Matt Vince? And I think regardless of the outcome of this weekend or the game 3, that's going to be the main question this whole offseason, whether you're celebrating or disappointment. Is Matt Vince going to be back between the pipes for the next season?
Yeah, and I think, and we have a long off season to talk about this one, but the upcoming draft supposedly, and I feel bad every single time I mention this because there's a lot of talented players coming into the league next year, but they keep mentioning that this draft doesn't have your prototypical, first overall pick that's really obvious. And in general, it's a little bit of a weaker draft class. And this is when Buffalo has 3 first round picks. So if Vince comes back and they are, ready to just run it back again, 5th straight appearance, whatever happened. If he comes back, do you almost ditch all 3 first round picks and just go trade them away for an established player right now that can, just do something to this roster to help continue the progress you're on and push it over the edge again, just to stay kind of current with the rest of the league? Because so often we've talked about this team, and again, whole offseason, we'll get there, but there's just no room for draft picks on this team, especially a team that has now been to 4 straight finals, and there's just not a lot of roster space for anybody to break it when they're healthy. So having 3 first round picks looks great, but are they essentially useless if everybody wants to run it back? If, Vince, Bucky, Priolo, Dawson, if they all come back, you have even less spots because Dawson got traded here. So you have less spots than you did last year, and you have a full roster likely to pretty much fully return, and you just have, once again, no space. Like, do you just trade all 3 of those first round picks away to try to get something somewhere to just, get one player to help continue to bolster this lineup? Or I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but to me, and you said it as well, I think it all kind of hinges on what Vince wants to do. And if he does end up leaving, then I think those 3 first round draft picks become that much more interesting, because I think while the Bandits will still be really, really good, I don't know without Vince if they'd necessarily be considered favorites next year when a team like Toronto was 15-3. And yes, they can't get past Buffalo, but they also couldn't get past Matt Vince. And if he leaves, maybe that's what they need. Exactly like you said, maybe they would simply stick with everything they have and run it back without a Bandits team in their way that has Matt Vince.
So that was our look way forward onto something that, is all hypothetical. But again, we're trying to fill some time leading up to this preview that we've been going over nonstop.
But depend on this weekend.
It could depend on this weekend, so it is technically relevant. But before we dive into our normal preview, which could be our final preview of this season, Phil, let's take it away with our first sponsor, Tap That Tap Room.
Tap That Tap Room is at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar. How a self-pour bar works is you pour the beer yourself, hence self-pour. You can have as little or as much as you would like of their 30 consistently rotating taps. They offer a variety of beers, ciders, sour seltzers, and malt beverages, so you can find your new favorite or stick with one that you already love.
So it's going to be a very busy weekend for Tap That Tap Room. Thursday, they got karaoke from 7 to 11. Friday, they got the Bandits watch party starting at 7. And then Saturday, if you can't get down to Banditland, don't worry. Tap That Tap Room has you covered. They are hosting their watch party again, 7:30 that night. You can cheer on the Buffalo Bandits even if you can't be a part of Banditland on both nights. I know there's a large contingency going Friday to Albany, but if you can't go that one as well, you can head down to Tap That Tap Room to watch it there. You can check out their Facebook page for all their posted events, or check what's on tap or what's on deck at tapthattaproom.com. Phil, let's dive into our preview of the NLL Finals. They're finally here. Well, really, tomorrow, because you still got to wait another day. But let's go over the numbers right now. Both teams finished the regular season sitting at 11-7. Albany had the advantage going 2-0 in the regular season over Buffalo. Both teams are 3-0 in the playoffs. Buffalo in the regular season first in scoring, 13.17. Albany was tied for 7th, 11.45. But in the playoffs, the roles have been reversed. Albany is averaging 12 goals in the playoffs. Buffalo's down to 10.67. But for the goals against, This has been reversed. Buffalo in the regular season, 11.78, which was 10th in the regular season. Albany, 10.61, which was 3rd. But for the playoffs, Buffalo's averaging 7 goals against, and Albany is down at 8.37. So it's been a weird change where Buffalo's defense, which we knew was coming on at the end of the season, has continued that in the playoffs. They've been electric, but their offense has kind of slowed up, and that kind of happens when you're going against Brett Dobson and Nick Rose. But per John Gertler, this is a very interesting stat that he pointed out and could be a very critical piece in this series. Buffalo is 19 of 25 in their power plays the last 7 games, and they're 7-9 in the playoffs. Albany, in the playoffs, 8-27. They were 15th in the regular season. So it could really come down to which team is headed to the box more. If Buffalo is able to get Albany off their edge and put them in the box, Buffalo has been lethal on the power play. But I guess Buffalo gets a little bit more of a buffer here. I still don't want them to go to the box at all, but for a team that has been in penalty trouble a lot this playoffs, this might not kill them as much as I thought they would. You still just can't give this offense and the players that we're going to go over in a second any more firepower than they already have.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a lot with that Toronto series, that in the first game they went 1 of 8, and even the one they got, I believe, was on the 5. No, it wasn't the 5 minute. It was on the 5.
It was the Corey Small one right at the end there.
I would say, but it was at the last second when the game was way out of control.
It wasn't the last second. I think there was either 3 or a minute 50.
Very, very toward the end of the game. Yeah, not
way
literally last second, but just the game was over, and I'm not going to say Buffalo gave up or anything, but the intensity had disappeared from that game. It was just kind of get to the next game, and they snuck one in. So even that one, I mean, essentially 0 for 8. But then in that second game, I do believe Toronto went 3 of 6, so a little bit more lethal and a little bit more scary as far as the Buffalo penalty kill goes. But overall, their penalty kill has been really, really good for a while. I mean, that kind of goes hand in hand with how good their defense has been and Paul Dawson has been. But, I mean, all these stats are here. I mean, like you mentioned, a part of it is going up against Dobson, who stood on his head and almost led Georgia past Buffalo in that game 1, and then going up against the Triple Crown winner, Nick Rose. It's just a very tough ask of the Bandits offense. So it's not necessarily that they've been terrible in the playoffs, or, the stats clearly aren't there to match what they did in the regular season, but playoffs are played a lot tighter, and the teams they went up against as far as defense and goaltending goes were just elite. So it took the Bandits defense and Matt Vince to play almost, perfect in order to get past some of those early teams. But Albany hasn't had quite the same competition on the other side. Wrigley area is a very, very good goalie. So that one was really tough. I know you said Hill for Halifax was doing a pretty good job as well, but I think Dobson and Rose are both up there, if not better, especially Rose, than the other competition that Albany had to face. So those numbers for the offense doesn't look necessarily great for Buffalo, but the defense is the big thing. I think you want to key in on that. I mean, they've dropped their goals against per game from 11.78 to 7, and that is gross in the best way possible. I mean, anytime you hold a team in the NLL to an average of under 10 a game, it's really impressive. Under 9 a game is extremely impressive. Under 8 is just unheard of. So to be all the way down at 7, and looking at Vince's numbers, I mean, 87.8 save percentage is ridiculous, and a 6.85 goals against, also ridiculous. Just what he's been able to do is absolutely insane. So yes, the offense necessarily hasn't been flowing the same way it was, but the defense has come to play, and Matt Vince has come to play. And I think it's going to be a really interesting battle between the defense and the Albany offense to see. I mean, we just went over those stats. I mean, the Albany offense averaging 12 a game in playoffs is really good, but the Buffalo defense only giving up 7. I mean, that difference between those two is quite wide. I mean, that's 5 goals per game average, that those two are different from offense to defense. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a really good battle between the two.
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting to see if Buffalo's defense, which we talked about in the last show, how different they look both in scheme and in players' faces and bodies out there, because a lot of these players weren't there the last time these two teams faced off. But Albany's offense has scored 30 goals against Buffalo this season. 17 in the first game and 13 in the second. So they're averaging 15 goals a game. And yes, the second game, they did not have Matt Vincent net. Buffalo didn't. But still, you gave up 8 in the first half, and you just gave up 8 in the second quarter
Also,
in
don't
game
give
one.
up don't give up an empty net.
Don't give up a
goal to
goalie
the
goal.
Please don't.
Yeah, that also helps Josh Byrne. Yeah, don't shoot so early. But yeah, stay out of the box as well. I mean, the first game, Albany went 2 for 6 on the power play, but the second game they went 4 for 8. That's just way too many opportunities, and Buffalo went 0 for 1. Buffalo is 2 for 4 on the power play against Albany this year. And this quick math, that's 6 for 14 that Albany's gone. So yes, this is also still stay out of the box. I know I gave you all those numbers, but this is really going to come down to, and like you said, it's going to come down to, can Buffalo's defense figure out the Albany offense that they hadn't early in the season? Again, the teams are very different than the first time they faced and the second time they faced, but still, you got to give those clear lanes for Matt Vince to see if you're not blocking those shots, and you have to get out on those shooters, because this Albany offense is so different than what you've seen most of the year. And, Albany's 3-1 against Buffalo these last 2 years, but I think this defense really can figure out what Albany does well with all their veteran pieces back there, and with Matt Vincent net and the whole coaching staff, and especially with the forwards being able to chase down those loose balls and get back on defense and cause those turnovers. I really think that Buffalo's defense is going to be able to figure out this Albany offense. Maybe that's just part of Homer and me and being a little bit biased, but I really think Buffalo's defense is going to be able to figure out this Albany offense and figure out what they do better than Albany and be able to exploit it and take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think this first game is going to be massive. I think the
Agreed.
kind
Yep.
of feeling
It's gonna
out
be a tone
period
setter
between these two teams, and even within the first game, that first half and the second half, I think coming out in the first half, we'll say the Bandits defense looks really good. I mean, expect Albany to change their game plan a little bit, not anything drastic, but I think the whole first game, no matter how it goes, is going to be a big feeling out between the two teams, because as much as we've talked about that they've played each other twice this year, it was, as we've also talked about a lot, that it was earlier in the season. The Bandits defense especially looks very different, and it's all coming down to the Bandits defense versus Albany's offense. I know we really haven't talked a ton about the Bandits offense versus Albany's defense and Doug Jameson, who has also been playing really, really well. But I think it's because the Albany offense has just been so potent so far in the playoffs, and the Bandits defense has been so incredible so far in the playoffs. So, I mean, those are the two between the teams that stand out the most. So I think it's going to be a massive first half, second half, first game feeling out between the two, and trying to figure out, like what is working, what isn't working, and what has changed between these two teams since they last saw each other. I think it's going to be a really interesting kind of chess match early on in that game, and in general, all in game one, to see what the adjustments are headed into game two as well.
I agree. So let's dive into the players here, because this is going to be a very interesting matchup. And we've talked about this game nonstop since Buffalo beat Toronto and ended up in the finals, knowing that it was going to be Albany, since Albany beat San Diego in the finals or semifinals as well to make it to the finals. But we'll kind of dive into these numbers a bit more. Sam Firth, number 94. These are the lefties. Nate Kiernan, number 28. Marshall Powless, number 8. Ethan Walker, 57. And then the righties are pretty good, with Ty Kurtz, who's a rookie at number 21. Travis Longboat's having a great comeback season after being out a lot last year. Actually, the whole year last year. I think Glenn Clark was on Lacrosse Classified and said he got hurt 4 seconds into the first training camp practice, which is terrible. But number 9, and then Alex Simmons, number 6. But really, it's the righties for me that you really have to watch. Ty Kurtz and Alex Simmons are beasts. They're monsters. They're up for Rookie of the Year for a reason. And as of this recording, maybe they won it because they haven't released it yet. I think Alex Simmons is the clear favorite. We already went over that. But really, if you're able to contain Alex Simmons and Ty Kurtz and make them play Buffalo Bandits ball, you're going to be able to control what this Albany offense does. But honestly, and I've been saying it since the midway season, and we talked about the biggest surprises, and to me it was Ethan Walker, and I mentioned that for a reason. He is the clear quarterback for this offense. Everything runs, and the offense goes as Alex Simmons does, but Ethan Walker is the engine. Like, Alex Simmons is the exterior and the shiny new, and everybody goes up to it for a reason. But if you know anything about cars, it's what's the engine, it's what's underneath the hood, and that's Ethan Walker for me. And, he might not have those flashy stats. He might not be the leader on the team in points, but this postseason, he's been great. 5-9-14, 6 loose balls, 19 shots. He's not a guy that needs to get his own to get himself going. He's good at setting up guys, and he's the leader on the power play as well when it gets going, 2, 5, and 7. So to me, if you're able to lock down in Ethan Walker and not allow him to set up Kurtz and Simmons, that might be the best route to control this offense, is if you're able to keep the ball out, do what you did to Mark Matthews to possibly Ethan Walker. And I think I said that against Alex Simmons on the last show, but I think as the week's gone on and the more numbers I dug into, if you're able to do what you did against Mark Matthews to Ethan Walker, I think you shut down this offense as much as you can and control this game as much as you can.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to give them this distinction yet because the other two have earned it then and again and by leaps and bounds. But I mean, I think you can pretty kind of see the comparison between Dane Smith and Josh Byrne too, and Ethan Walker and Alex Simmons light. I think Walker would be your Dane Smith, kind of like you mentioned, the offense kind of goes through him, a little bit more of the captain, the assist guy, the guy who doesn't necessarily need to score, but the offense kind of runs through him. But then you got the really flashy Josh Byrne putting up insane points, which is their Alex Simmons. So we'll see how they progress. But I think just from a, straight up team to team comparison, I think that's kind of what you're trying to say. Like Walker might not necessarily.
There's a lot of similarities between the right. forwards with Albany. Like I think even Dietrich said it in the pressers this week. They're a lot like the 2019 Buffalo Bandits on their way that just don't know any better. There's a lot of similarities between pieces on the Albany offense and what Buffalo has coming up through the ranks when they did back in 2019.
Yeah, one of the more interesting things, I guess, which, I mean, again, kind of goes with the goals per game that they're scoring a little bit more than the Bandits, so their points are going to be a little bit higher, but they have 3 players over 10 points and honestly 3 players over 14 points at 19, 17, and 14 for the playoffs with Simmons, Kurtz, and Walker. And the Bandits only have 18, 16, and then 8 with Buchanan third on the team in points, which also, I don't know who I'd expect to see there necessarily, because the Bandits do spread it out quite a bit. I mean, they have an 8-7-7-6-5 for points after that, but then Albany, same thing though, 7-6-5-4. So both teams spread it around quite a bit, but it's interesting to see Albany has kind of a big 3, which the Bandits don't really have right now, because I think they are spreading it out that much more. Like, again, I mean, I kind of just said it, but I don't know who I would expect to be third on the team necessarily, because the Bandits spread it out so much. But Buchanan, I don't think necessarily would be that guy that I would expect to be third on the Bandits right now in playoff points. But I don't think they have anyone in particular stepping up, overall, but they have players stepping up each and every game that are kind of helping and take over. Like Chase Fraser in that second Toronto game really helped and took over the entire fourth quarter. And I mean, so you have individual efforts like that. And even Buchanan, I think it was the Georgia game where he had the hat trick, and that was huge. So it's just the individual games players are stepping up, but they don't really have a third player right now that they are going to no matter what, where Albany kind of does. And then Albany also has a decent supporting cast. So as much as we love the Bandits offense and as incredible as they are, and they are absolutely incredible, I'm not trying to take anything away from them, the Albany offense is right up there with them and is honestly, it's very scary. I'm not going to say quite as lethal, because I do think that, obviously Byrne and Smith are better. But Albany is coming on strong at the right time, and they're gelling at the right time too for a younger team.
So we'll go over the defense and transition players now. It's going to be a big week for Connor Farrell, and I think we need a Connor Farrell game like we saw game 1 against TD Erlin.
I'm going to cut you off.
Go for
it. There was, I believe it was IL Indoor. I sent it to you, so I think it was IL Indoor, right? That there was an article that kind of mentioned, and it was a very interesting take, so I want your thoughts on it. I think it was Steven Stamp who wrote the article, just a few kind of random thoughts about the upcoming series and everything. He was mentioning that he thought it'd be interesting to see the Bandits remove Farrell from the lineup and add an extra defensive player to kind of keep the defense a little bit fresher with how fast and how young the Albany offense is. And we've seen it throughout the whole playoffs. That's what they're known for. They move around a lot. They're very youthful. They do not stop. And it's just go, go, go all the time for them. And with Nardella being one of the best in the league and Farrell struggling, especially in game 2 against TD Erlin, he was kind of mentioning, would it be more beneficial for the Bandits to sit Farrell, win whatever faceoffs they can win with whoever they throw out there? I mean, Ian McKay was doing an okay job, like you said, not letting other players win them cleanly, and add that Justin Robinson as the extra defender out there who can play, the entire game and take more shifts than just faceoffs to give the Bandits defense a little bit more of a rotation and keep them a little bit fresher throughout the series.
See, I
just want your take on it.
I
thought it was interesting.
Understand that, and I get it. I do not think the Bandits in any world are going to do that. And
Fair.
Seeing Connor Farrell take the faceoff on the penalty kill against TD Erlin in a close matchup when John Tavares didn't even trust Max Adler to do that last year. I think they think very highly of Connor Farrell, that they're not going to take him out of the lineup. Does the idea of that make sense to get an extra defender out there? 100%. But I've been saying that all season long, that faceoffs really don't result in win and losses. It's what happens immediately after. And because of the presence of Connor Farrell in game 1, you did not see TD Erlin win any clean matchups until the very end. And even then, it was just the dying seconds where they finally figured out Connor Farrell. That's what I mean about we need the good Connor Farrell in this one to tie it up, because this defense in transition are so lethal. And like you mentioned, the offense is so quick. They're nonstop, always moving. But I think that having a guy like a Dane Smith that can play those extra shifts on the defensive end, as much as you don't like it and you want him up in the forward group as much as possible, where he's not taking a shift off forward to play defense. But I think with the rotation they have now and all healthy bodies back there, it's not like you're throwing a Sam Lure back there. It's not like you're throwing a Corey Highfield back there. It's not like you're throwing a whoever else was back there when everybody was getting hurt. So I think they do already have a good rotation. I think what's going to be key with staying fresh and healthy is staying out of the box so you don't burn the same 4 guys who are your consistent defenders out there. Now that you have a Belter, now that you have a Bomberry, now that you have a Paul Dawson, I think they already have a good rotation where I'm not worried about the defenders getting hurt or tired. I think it's all about staying out of the box so those guys do stay fresh. That way you keep a guy like Connor Farrell in there so you stop the clean draws every single time and you can tie it up and avoid Joe Nardella coming down and scoring off of Mad Vince, which could come back to haunt you.
I do think this is I thought it was just an interesting strategy either way. I think you explained
Yep.
the counterpoint very well, and I think we could see a counterpoint, honestly, between game 1 and game 2. I mean, we'll see even between those. I mean, Farrell gets absolutely lit up in game 1, and Johnny thinks with back-to-back games that his team's going to be a little bit more exhausted in game 2. I could see them making that switch and pulling Farrell for an extra defender because you're playing back-to-back nights against a youthful, fast team that doesn't stop. But if Farrell holds his own pretty well and the team does okay in game 1, then I could see them running that back out in game 2. So I think it also is a strategy that could change based on game 1 compared to game 2, but just an interesting point to throw out there.
So before we dive into the defense and transition players now, let's go through our second sponsor, Mr. Sizzles, another delicious place to go to eat.
Yeah, they have a brand new menu, but Mr. Sizzles is at 346 Connecticut Street in Buffalo, New York. They are opening 2 new locations pretty soon. They are also hiring for those locations, so give a peek at that if you're interested. They are open 7 days a week, 11 to 11, with a brunch menu on Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3.
So Phil already mentioned it, and we've been mentioning it nonstop since the end of April when the menu did go live. So go check that out if you haven't. It's delicious, and the masterminds behind that is just.
It must be really
I don't know
fun to
how
come
you can
up
be.
with. I'll tell you that.
I don't know how you can be so creative, not just in
Sounds like a good
what
time.
you're pairing together, but the names of the food as well are just top notch. But we're going back to an instant classic. If somehow you still don't know, Dane Smith, yeah, the great Dane Smith, partnered with the one-on-one right here, Mr. Sizzles, for his own sandwich. He created, and they created together, the Great Dane sandwich. It's a fried chicken with hot honey, chipotle sauce, crispy onions, avocado, and pepper jack cheese on a brioche bun. Absolutely delicious. When Phil went for his first time, that's what he chose. So if you're like Phil and you want something delicious put in your mouth, go get the Great Dane sandwich before you head down to Banditland, or before you even head out to Albany, and you will not be mistaken. So check out their new menu on all their social medias or at MrSizzles.com. Let's run through the defense and transition players now. We already really mentioned him. Joe Nardella, through the regular season, 68%. He had the pleasant opportunity to go against Trevor Baptiste in the second round, so that dropped his winning percentage down to 46. Patrick Cossack, I'm a big fan of Patrick Cossack. I don't think he gets the recognition that he deserves just because he is playing on an Albany team that has such studs on the forward group. And Jackson Nishimori's out there, Mike Burns out there. You got John Wagner, who we talked about nonstop this week. He's stepped up, and he is one of the leaders back there. Colton Watkinson, their captain. Leo Storos, he always gets people hot and bothered because of what he says and what he does out there. But this defense, while they might not have that household name like a Steve Priolo or a Mitch DeSnoo or a Brad Cree, this defense can hang with the best of them, and they have legit playmakers back there that can get out with the run. And Buffalo has been very good in the transition game, the transition defense this year, but this is one of those teams that you really have to be careful with because they're not afraid to just take the ball, keep the forwards on the sidelines, and go to try to score the ball themselves.
Yeah, their big three, kind of two, is like you mentioned, Koshak and Wagner, with the cause turnovers at 5 and 4 so far in playoffs. Outside of that, as far as cause turnovers go, they don't have a ton. Block shots is very hard to compare any team to the Bandits. So as much as I would love to kind of mention some of their block shots, it's the Bandits, I think, have not quite twice as many block shots, but pretty close. So that's just a stat that the Bandits have exploited and exploded with. But Albany does have Wagner, who I think would be your Paul Dawson, your trade deadline guy who has come in to really settle down the defense for them. He leads the team with 6 block shots as well. So he really is just kind of their Paul Dawson equivalent. And then Koshak, like you mentioned, does not really get the recognition he deserves for being a pretty solid defensive player because of the offense, and the offense is all we've been really talking about for the most part, and that is what gets the recognition for this Albany team. But he's done a really nice job. He has 5 cause turnovers, 0 block shots, but his cause turnovers are big. He's kind of the one that the offense for the Bandits is going to have to not obviously work around, but keep your eye on and kind of just know where he is, because he is the kind of ball hawk on that team.
So let's move to the goaltending position. Doug Jamieson, he's pretty stinking good. Former goaltender of the year, 2020. If you want to put an asterisk next to that because the season didn't finish, that's fine. But yeah, he's been absolutely filthy. He was really good in the regular season. 11 and 5, 10.12 goals against and an 87 save percentage. He just took those numbers. He's pretty much pulling a Matt Vince here, where playoffs come around and he's even a better goalie. 3-0, 8.34 goals against and an 84 save percentage. Just an absolute filthy performance that Doug Jamieson is throwing out there. And when you only allow 3 goals against a Halifax offense, those numbers are definitely going to drop. But he is a man that you definitely want to get to early, but he's also a man that his confidence doesn't shake. Like, if the ball goes behind him, he's going to shrug it off. He's one of those type of goalies that doesn't really let things affect you. So even if you get to him early, he's not going to let that affect him. But I think this is still a team where you want to build that lead and make them adjust to you. And I think this could be a very big Tohoku Nanticoke game. And I think if you get to Tohoku Nanticoke involved early, drawing the penalties, or get in front of Doug Jamieson and scoring those goals, this could be a way that you can beat Doug Jamieson and get the balls behind him, because it's very tough to do, especially in these playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think he is the best when it comes to inside movement. I think he's a little bit similar to a Nick Rose, but I think Rose is a little bit better with how he handles this. But I think if you get inside on Jamieson, he doesn't have the best side-to-side movement. He doesn't really react all that much to it. So I think your Nanacoke, your Burns, if they can get in behind the defense, I think that's going to be huge. And like you mentioned, Nanacoke specifically, he's known to kind of just bull rush the defense and take things on himself and get right into the crease. And I think that's where you're going to score a lot of goals against Jameson. I believe when I did the breakdown of how they've done in playoffs, he was pretty even in the San Diego series as far as giving up goals from in tight, mid range, and far. I think it was all pretty similar, but you can tell in the in tight goals, like Curtis Dixon scored and a few other players were scoring those just kind of crease dives, and he kind of just stands there. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to do because that's what Nick Rose does. And if you don't react, it's one of those things where a player will try, 6, 7, 8 fakes on you by the time they shoot the ball. And if you don't react at all, they might overthink themselves and just, kind of shoot it right at you. But I think veteran scorers like Nanacoke, like Byrne, can find a way to see the kind of creases in that armor and find a way to get in behind the defense. And I think right on top in those kind of crease dives are where he's going to be able to be beat. But even a really talented Halifax offense, a really talented San Diego offense, they did not find a way to beat him very easily. And I mean, his 84% save percentage is, like you mentioned, pretty similar to Vince and the 8.34 goals against. Also just an incredible number that he's been able to put up against some of these pretty solid offensive teams. So another really, really good goalie battle between Vince and Jameson as well.
So, Phil, it is that time of the show. I only want game one, but what is your prediction for game one in Albany on Friday night?
Well, seeing all the posts of how Banditland is going to travel and knowing how much the players do love when Banditland travels, I do think that with the way the Bandits defense has been playing, and I think if the offense can just find a way to continue what they're doing but be even a little bit better, I think this is the Bandits to lose. I know they've loved their own underdog narrative, and it's not necessarily incorrect, but I don't know. I think this is honestly a pretty big toss up between a younger team that is on the rise and obviously a championship team coming back to the finals for the fourth straight time. Hard to call them the underdogs, but with the way the Bandits are rolling right now, the way the defense is rolling right now, if the offense can pick it up just a little bit, stay out of the box, I do think the Bandits are the team that is it's theirs to lose. I'll put it that way for this series. And I do think they will take game one. I do have it being close and tight. I think the Albany offense is better than Toronto's. I think they have a little bit more of a dynamic offense that might give the Bandits defense a little bit of trouble. So I'm going to go with an 11-9 victory.
So the last round when they faced Toronto, I had them Buffalo losing game one and winning game two. And I if it went to game three, I had Buffalo winning game three. I am in the mindset that if Buffalo is able to hold Albany under 10 goals, which they've been able to do to all teams dating back to when it was 13-11 versus Colorado. That was the last time any team, they've gone on a 5-game stretch of not allowing more than 10 goals. And remember that stretch they had where they allowed over 13 for 8 straight weeks. It's unbelievable what this defense has been able to flip a script and do with Paul Dawson in the lineup. But if this Buffalo Bandits offense is able to get to double digits, and I think their defense is going to be able to figure out Albany. I really do. And this is not me being a homer. If you've listened to this show for the last 3 years, I'm anything from a homer. But I really think, and you summed it up perfectly, I think this is Buffalo's finals to lose. And I can't see Dane Smith. I can't see Josh Byrne. I can't see Steve Priel. I can't see Matt Vince. I can't see John Tavares dropping a game in these playoffs. I'll be flat out honest. I'm having Buffalo sweep these. I'm having Buffalo coming and winning it in Banditland, and I'm having them go 5-0 in the playoffs. And I have them the exact same score in game one that you do, 11-9.
Oh, I don't know if that's good or bad. I forgot what happened last time we had it the same. I think they won, but it was by a wildly drastic score.
We had it 15-8 victory against Las Vegas, and it was 14-5. So it's a good thing when we pick the same score.
All right, then we're good. We're all set. We're ready for the weekend. And like you mentioned, that 5-game stretch, Lex Metrics, if you haven't checked it out, they did a quick 1 minute and 30-second, I think, something like that, really short YouTube video kind of talking about the Bandits defense and the 5-game stretch they've been on. They are currently allowing a 9% shooting percentage, which is ridiculous in their last 5 games. The average allowed throughout the entire season, throughout the entire NLL, I believe was 17%, and the Bandits through their first 18 games throughout the entire season were allowing 19% of a shooting percentage. So to drop it all the way to 9% in the last 5 games, just ridiculous what they've been able to do on defense and what Vince has been able to do in net. And like you mentioned, I do see that continuing. I mean, they just took down the third best offense in the regular season and made them look silly. So I do expect it to continue. I do expect them to hopefully stay calm with this revenge narrative, but Albany has had the better of them in the last 4 games they've played, 1 for 3. So I do think the Bandits being I don't like the veteran team idea because San Diego was the veteran team and got smoked and got really angry. So I don't like that, but I think they are the championship caliber team that can play a really, really solid game and just kind of take it over.
Phil, what is your prediction for game 2?
Game 2, I do have a sweep as well. I was trying to look back and I failed kind of trying to do it on the run here. And I was trying to look back the last time the Bandits even lost a game on the way to the finals. I would assume it's been quite a bit because they keep sweeping Toronto in round 2. So it's been a while since they've even lost a game on the way to the finals, but we know they've had some finals trouble. But I do have them sweeping. And in game 2 in Banditland, I think that place is going to be insane. The cup will be in the building one way or the other, but we do have them winning game 1. So in the building for the Bandits. I think that one's going to be a little bit bigger. I have that one at 13-9, still 9 for Albany.
So I look back. We've been doing this thing for 3 years. This is our 3rd year running through all our predictions. We have predicted them to... We've had the exact same score prediction 2 times. Once last year, we had them winning 13-11 versus Toronto in game 1 of round 2. They won 14-5. This year, week 18, we both had them winning 15-8. They won 14-5. So obviously in game 1, since we picked the same one, if you're a betting person out there, have Buffalo winning 14-5 because we're 2 for 2 when this happens. So I almost went back. I was like, I'm just going to pick them to win 14-5. But then I was like, then we don't have the same score, so I can't do that. But yeah, I have them sweeping as well. I do not have the same score as you. I have them 12-8. And
I almost went.
I really think that Buffalo is going to be able to figure out what they did wrong, and they use this full almost week and a half of no action whatsoever to study the tape, figure out what they did wrong the first time, figure out what they did wrong the second time, figure out what Albany is doing to these teams to get under their skin. And I know it's easier said than done, but they're going to go in these 2 games and have to be that calm, composed team and not get in penalty trouble. And I know Albany has struggled in the power play, but that's still more wear and tear. And I already went over that. It's more wear and tear on the same 4 guys that are on the penalty kill nonstop. If you're getting into foul trouble, that's Cam Wires getting tired. That's Justin Martin that's getting tired. That's Nick Weiss that's getting tired. Steve Priola, Paul Dawson, all your top name defenders are getting tired because players can't stay out of the box. So if you're able to stay out of the box, your defense isn't going to get as tired and they're going to be able to defend this dangerous Albany offense. And I really think this is going to be a team that sweeps the playoffs and keeps every team to single digits, which is going to be an unheard of trip down memory lane in 5, 10, 15 years when we're reviewing what this dynasty of Buffalo Bandits action looked like.
Completely agree. I love it. And let's get a sweep. And I wish we didn't record this early because we have too long to wait. Too long. I'm sick of waiting for these finals. Is this how people feel like when their team's actually in the Super Bowl, where they got to take that week off?
Probably might never know that feeling whatsoever. But stupid graduates couldn't be anywhere. Congratulations, I guess. Let's go into the final spot here, the milestone moment, the fastest milestone minute in all the land, even though it's a little bit longer than a minute. All these possible milestones can be found on X at Buffalo Sports Co. We post them on the lead up to each game. So if you miss one and you don't want to listen back, you can check for them there. And they're going to be out on Thursdays and Fridays. And remember, there's 2 games, so there's a lot to digest here. Buckle up. Away we go. If Steve Priolo plays on Friday, we'll move into a tie for 8th place in NLL playoff history with Jeff Shatler, Pat McCready, and Sandy Chapman. If he plays on Saturday, we'll move into a tie for 7th in NLL playoff history with Chris Corbeil. Dane Smith is 1 goal away from tying John Grant Jr. for 6th in NLL playoff history. He averages 2.11 a game. He is 2 away from tying Colin Doyle for 5th place. Nick Weiss is 3 caused turnovers away from tying Curtis Martin for 10th place in NLL playoff history. He averages .83 a game. Dane Smith is 5 assists away from tying John Tavares for 1st place in NLL playoff history. He averages 3.97 a game. Josh Byrne is 5 assists away from tying Jim Veltman for 10th place in NLL playoff history. He averages 3.47 a game. He's 6 away from tying Josh Sanderson for 9th. He's 9 away from tying Jeff Shatler for 8th, and 11 away from tying Sean Evans for 7th. Dane Smith is 7 points away from tying Dane Doby for 2nd place in NLL playoff history. He averages 6.07 a game. Josh Byrne is 12 points away from tying John Grant Jr. for 10th place in NLL playoff history. He averages 5.83 a game. If Dane Smith plays in both games, he will pass Mark Stainhouse for 3rd place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. If Nick Weiss plays in both games, he will pass Billy D. Smith and Rich Kilgore for 5th place in Buffalo Bandits history. Chris Cloutier is 2 goals away from tying Micah Kersey for 5th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 1.65 a game. Chase Frazier is 3 goals away from tying Micah Kersey for 5th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He averages 1.42 a game. Tehoka Nanticoke is 6 goals away from tying Micah Kersey for 5th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He averages 1.6 a game. Could be a very bad weekend for Micah Kersey. Kyle Buchanan, 4 goals away from tying Ryan Benesh for 10th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 1.07 a game. He is also 4 assists away from tying Darius Kilgore for 6th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He averages 1.87 a game. Ian McKay, 1 assist away from tying Micah Kersey and Rich Kilgore for 9th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He averages 1.56 a game. Steve Priolo, 1 assist away from tying Mike Kersey, Rich Kilgore for 9th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages .83 a game. Kyle Buchanan, 1 point away from tying Ryan Benesh for 8th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 2.93 a game. I told you there was a lot. Tehoka Nanticoke, 1 point away from tying Ryan Benesh for 8th place in Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 2.93 a game. Nick Weiss is 5 loose balls away from tying Jim Veltman and Pat McCready for 4th place Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He averages 4.92 a game. Dane Smith is 11 loose balls away from tying Jim Veltman and Pat McCready for 4th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. Averages 4 a game. Ian McKay is 12 loose balls away from tying Jim Veltman and Pat McCready for 4th place Buffalo Bandits history. He averages 6.17 a game. Josh Byrne is 1 point away from 100 for his playoff career. He averages 5.82 a game. With both games played this weekend, John Tavares will move into 1st place in playoff games coached by the Buffalo Bandits, passing Darius Kilgore and Connor Farrell. Last 2 here. He is 3 faceoffs away from tying Jason Crosby for 8th place Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He is 14 away from tying Kevin Anderson for 7th, 16 away from tying Tom Fair for 6th place, 51 away from tying Darius Kilgore for 5th, and 56 away from tying Corey Bomberry for 4th. With 1 faceoff win, he will tie Jason Crosby for 9th place in Buffalo Bandits playoff history. He is 4 away from tying Chase Frazier for 8th, 8 away from tying Kevin Anderson for 7th, 17 away from tying Rich Kilgore and Corey Bomberry for 5th, 23 away from tying Tom Fair for 4th, and 28 away from tying Darius Kilgore for 3rd place. Phil, a lot of things can happen when Buffalo plays so many playoff games in such a short time.
Yeah, I did yawn like 3 times during those 5 pages of
I don't blame you whatsoever. Imagine saying it.
I think Kyle Buchanan's are interesting because he's only been on the team for 3 years.
Right.
This being his 3rd, and he's almost
Nanticoke too.
Yep. It's just crazy to see how far they're moving up. But again, like you just mentioned, it really helps when you go to 3 straight finals in 3 straight years and 4 straight finals in the last 4 finals that have been played in the NLL. So it helps quite a bit when you play a lot of playoff lacrosse. The only thing that would help them more is if they didn't sweep Toronto every single year and got to that 3rd game occasionally. But, I'll take the sweep.
Yeah, these would have been spread out a little bit more if they could have gotten a little bit more action. And if these players just want to crank out 1 million points, so they just beat all these records, and then you're not passing anybody anymore, that would be lovely. But yeah, if you don't want to listen back, I highly advise you to check out our Buffalo Sports Co. on X. It's where you can find all these milestones, because there was a lot of them. But Phil, is there anything else with this episode before we shut it down, wait a day, and then watch Buffalo Bandits action, hoping they can defend their title?
We haven't had to say that too many often. Oh my
Right.
gosh, too often with our previews as well. But no, I'm all set. Hopefully, the next time we talk to our listeners, we are talking about another Buffalo championship. And if not, hopefully, we're talking about another preview at the very least. But I do think they can do it in two. And I do agree with you. As much as we try to take the homer out of us, I really don't think it is. I do think with just the way Buffalo's playing, I know Albany is the shock team of the NLL right now. And their offense is playing elite, but with Buffalo having done it last year and their defense and Vince looking like they are, I do think it's theirs to lose, and I do think they can do it. So hopefully, like I said, when we talk to our listeners again, we are talking about another championship banner going up in the rafters.
Yeah, I agree. I think regardless of what happens, we're going to be back on Monday.
Well, yes.
Whether it's a sweep
We're not
either way
retiring.
or a 1-1 with a game 3 coming up next Saturday. So we will be back next Monday. Regardless, we'll probably talk a little bit about, what happened this weekend, which
Just a little bit.
is it's a lot going on. It's going to be another double game preview. So buckle up if you thought these milestones were long. Wait till you hear both of us talk about games 1 and 2. Hopefully they're very similar and not like last game and versus Toronto where they were complete polar opposite games. So there's so much to talk about. But yeah, good luck to Buffalo Bandits and safe travels to all of Banditland that are heading to Albany. Get there safe and get back safe so you can be back in Banditland and hopefully see them raise the cup for the second time in 2 seasons and the 6th time in franchise history. So thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Thank you to Tap That Tap Room and Mr. Sizzles for sponsoring this episode and this show. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com, where 1, you can see my article coming out on Friday, and 2, you can shop at our store by just hitting the shop button at the top of the page. Tons of merch out there for everybody that wants it. Follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us that review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.